Post-impressionism is a predominantly French art movement that developed roughly between 1886 and 1905, from the last Impressionist exhibition to the birth of Fauvism.
Post-impressionists extended impressionism while rejecting its limitations. They continued using vivid colors, often thick application of paints, and real-life subject matter, but were more inclined to emphasize geometric forms, distort for expressive effect, and use unnatural or arbitrary color. The characteristics are: 1. The epicenter of this movement was Paris, France. 2. Concentrated on the subjective vision of the artist. 3. Painting transcended its traditional role as a window onto the world and instead became a window into the artist's mind and soul. 4. Some of the most famous post-impressionist artists were Paul Gauguin, Georges Seurat, and Vincent van Gogh. 5. Relied upon interrelations combination of color and shape to describe the world around them. 6. Many post-impressionist artists focus on the abstraction of reality rather than an objective literal representation. 7. There were two main opposing stylistic trends within the post-impressionist school of art. On one side was the structured geometric style, the precursor to Cubism, and on the other side was the expressive, abstract, non-geometric style. A. Post-impressionists felt the impressionists allowed their preoccupations with technique and the effects of natural light to overshadow the importance of the subject matter, the thing they were painting. Most famous post-impressionist art are Vincent van Gogh, Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, Paul Cézanne, and Paul Gauguin.
One picture of Vincent van Gogh is The Large Plane Trees. In 1889, after suffering a severe hallucinatory seizure, Van Gogh committed himself to an asylum near Saint-Remy. While walking through the town that fall, he was imprisoned by the sight of men repairing a road beneath immense plane trees. Rushing to capture the yellowing leaves, he painted this composition on an unusual cloth with a pattern of small red diamonds, visible in the picture's many unpainted areas. Instead of the cool, he wrote to his brother, "I have gone on working outside child now, and I think it is doing me good and the work too." After painting this composition directly from nature, Van Gogh used it to produce a second version in the studio known as the Road Matter and Saint-Remy, painted on a traditional canvas covered by a ground layer. The second version is more retracing the explosive yellows balanced by larger areas of cool color. Other of his pictures is filled with crows. The most famous picture is La Noche Estrellada, and we gave way.
Ahí está el amplio cielo despejado, las montañas y pastizales, o los olivos en un gran primer plano. Por otra parte, una pequeña villa debajo del nocturno que probablemente tomó de otro boceto de un poblado en Saint-Remy. Dominando el cuadro y la vista, una inmensa noche en espirales, una luna menguante y grandes estrellas. Sin duda un paisaje intrigante e hipnótico que de inmediato captura la atención y sobre el que se han dicho múltiples cosas. que si los olivos y la temática de las estrellas representan su pasado religioso, que si las espirales son muestra de su mente convulsa y atormentada, que si la pequeña villa es más bien un recuerdo del pueblo donde creció en Holanda. Realmente no creo que fuera para tanto. Al leer sus cartas uno se da cuenta que Vincent era una persona sumamente pasional, por lo que si a mí me preguntan, lo único que deseaba era pintar lo que sentía y le inquietaba en el momento, únicamente pensando en la mejor manera en que se podía ver y trazar su cuadro. Algo que resulta curioso es que Van Gogh realmente no tuvo en tan alta estima la pintura.
Me he dejado llevar por las abstracciones y no he pintado al natural, como veo las cosas en el mundo y donde radica mi verdadero interés y pasión.
Other artist is Henry de Toulouse-Lautrec, and one of his pictures is the marble polisher. Toulouse-Lautrec probably painted this work while studying in the Parisian atelier of the popular painter Fernand Cormon. Among his fellow pupils were Émile Bernard and Vincent van Gogh. With his emphasis on careful study of the human anatomy and its use of a famous ancient sculpture as a model, Titian lived in the Uffizi Museum in Florence. The marble polisher is indicative of the academic training Cormon provides. But Toulouse-Lautrec also used broken brushwork and colored shadows, her techniques derived from his impressionist temperament. Other of his pictures is Rose la Toilette. Paul Cézanne was painted woman in a green hat. Madame Cézanne with green hat, 1891-1892. Oil on canvas, the Barnes Foundation source. Another of picture is still life with a curtain.
And the last is Paul Gauguin with his picture is El Cristo Amarillo. One of the most famous works of Gauguin made during the autumn of 1889 in Le Poule, Britain, where he had moved because Pont-Aven was already too touristy. The painter was inspired by a polychrome carving of the 17th century, versioned by a local sculptor, which he found in the church of Tremalo near Pont-Aven. The Christ becomes the protagonist of the scene with that yellow color and the lines of the contours very marked, following the technique of cloisonne inspired by enamels and stained glass. Three Breton women appear next to the Christ, which suggests that we are faced with a new vision provoked by the intense devotion of women, as in the vision after the sermon. In the background, a figure jumps a fence, which may indicate the desire for escape, continuously present in the artist's mind. The primitive with woman and the symbolic trying to convey a message are present in the scene as well as the real and the imaginary. The color is typical of Breton autumn, with wonderful yellow colors, mixed with orange and greens in parallel with the Christ.
I'm going to talk about Vincent van Gogh. 30 March 1853, 29 July 1819. Was a Dutch post-impressionist painter who is among the most famous and influential figures in the history of Western art. In just over a decade, he created about 2,000 and 100 artworks, including around 860 oil paintings. Most of them is in the last 2 years of his life. They include landscape, still lifes, portraits, and self-portraits, and are characterized by bold colors and dramatic, impulsive, and expressive brushwork that contributed to the foundation of modern art. He succeeded at 37 following years of mental illness and poverty. Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, also known as Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, was a French painter, printmaker, draftsman, caricaturist, and illustrator. Was immersed in the colorful and theatrical life of Paris. In the late 19th century allowed him to produce a collection of enticing, elegant, and provocative images of the modern, sometimes decadent affairs of those times. Toulouse-Lautrec is among the best-known painters of the post-impressionism period, with Cézanne, Van Gogh, and Gauguin. In a 25 auction at Christie's auction house, La Blanchisseuse is early painting of a young laundress sold for us $4 million and set a new record for the artist for a price at auction. Paul Cézanne was a French artist of post-impressionism painter whose work laid the foundation of the transition from the 19th century conception of artistic endeavor to a new and radically different world of art in the 20th century. Cézanne's often repetitive, exploratory brushstrokes are highly characteristic and clearly recognizable. He used plans of color and small brush strokes that build up to form complex fields. The paintings convey intense study of his subjects. Cézanne is said to have formed the bridge between late 19th century Impressionism and the early 20th century's new line of artists and cubism. Both Matisse and Picasso are said to have remarked that Cézanne is the father of us all. Paul Gauguin was a recognized post-impressionist painter after his death. The experimental use of color and its scientific style were key elements for its distinction with respect to Impressionism. His work was a great influence to the French avant-garde and many other modern artists such as Pablo Picasso and Henri Matisse. Gauguin's art became popular after his death, partly due to the efforts of art matron Ambroise Vollard, who organized exhibitions of his work almost at the end of his career as posthumously in Paris. 12 many of his works were in the possession of the Russian collector Sergei Shchukin III, as well as in other important collections.